So you've mentioned the three-toed Bigfoot, and you have a cast in here in the museum. What else can you say about like the three-toed Bigfoot? Do you think they're a little different than five-toed Bigfoot, or what are your thoughts?
Well, the three-toed Bigfoot, I first became aware of three-toed Bigfoots back in the 70s. And it seems to me like most of the reports that I was picking up on were coming out of the Midwest and further east, like some states like Pennsylvania and Ohio. There were these reports of three-toed tracks being found. There's also a book that was done by Beth Ann Slade, and I can distinctly remember seeing photographs of her and some others holding these casts of great big footprints about that big that were three-toed prints. And I mean, they had these really large, gangly looking three-toed tracks that they didn't look like anything related to Bigfoot. They looked like more like something out of a science fiction movie or something. And then, of course, we have the tracks we have here from Chester Moore. Yeah, I met Chester Moore up in Willow Creek back in 2003, and he had some fascinating stories to tell about some of his work down in Texas. He operates out of the Big Thicket, which is down on the southeastern part of Texas, pretty close to Louisiana. Now, over the years, there have been numerous tales of swamp apes of various kinds from the Gulf Coast states, and this is another area where occasionally these three-toed tracks pop up. But the ones that are associated in the southern part of the country generally have a little more of a, I don't know, a little more of a reptilian look to them, and that they're not the great big ones like I was talking about in Pennsylvania. They have a tendency to be a little more streamlined looking and with longer toes. Now, there was one that was attributed to the Honey Island swamp monster, which was debunked by M.K. Davis, as a matter of fact, who at some point actually went to Texas where this took place and found the actual contrivance that was used to make these fake three-toed tracks. You can probably look that up online, the Honey Island swamp monster and M.K. Davis. So that one got debunked as being a hoax, but there were also in South Carolina and some of the other southern states, a number of years ago, there was talk of a lizard man. And there was a whole rash of lizard man sightings that took place for a while. And this thing was described as being, you know, an upright sort of Bigfoot-like being, but supposedly covered in scales and you know, and filth and so forth. Now, it could very well be that the lizard man sightings were actually Bigfoot sightings that people interpreted as being reptilian as opposed to hairy. I don't know. But there were these three-toed tracks. Now, Chester Moore wrote a book about Bigfoot, and in his book he devoted an entire chapter to the idea of three-toed tracks being created or caused by inbreeding. Now, I've done a little bit of research into that myself, and for example, there's this tribe in Africa called the Vedoma tribe, and they are colloquially known as the ostrich people because their footprints resemble those of an ostrich more than they do a human being, because they come down and their feet kind of branch off in two directions like this, and they'll have a toe or two on the end of each side of the foot that's actually almost like a horseshoe shape. Very, very peculiar feet. There were people who would have these traits that sometimes were in freak shows and sideshows back in the old carnival days, and they would call them lobster people and so forth. And they would invariably have these very strange-looking hands and feet. And it's an absolute truism that inbreeding does cause abnormalities to occur, and they're most visible in people's hands and feet. And they show up in the form of too many or too few toes. So I think that Chester is on the right track, suggesting that the three-toed Bigfoot tracks might be caused by inbreeding.